The dog started barking frantically just as Vin Diesel was heading toward the track at 120 miles per hour. No one could see the disaster that would unfold in the next 30 seconds. But the dog could see it. Rocco had been Vin Diesel's constant companion for 6 years. The massive blue-nosed Pitbull, weighing 85 pounds of pure muscle and loyalty, wasn't just a pet to the Fast and Furious star. He was family. While the world knew Vin as Dom Toretto, the street racing legend, Rocco knew him simply as the man who had saved him from a fighting ring in downtown Los Angeles. The rescue had happened during Vin's darkest period, between movie projects when doubt crept in. He'd found Rocco chained in a basement, scarred from forced fights, eyes filled with mistrust and pain. But something in those amber eyes had called to Vin, a recognition of shared struggle, of being underestimated. 6 years later, that broken fighter had become the most loyal companion Vin could have asked for. Rocco accompanied him everywhere, to movie sets, premiere parties, and especially to the private racetracks where Vin could indulge his real passion away from cameras and crowds. On this particular Saturday morning in July, they were at Willow Springs International Raceway in California's Mojave Desert. The track was closed for a private event, a gathering of serious car enthusiasts who came together monthly to push their machines to the limit. Vin's ride today was a customized 1970 Dodge Charger RT, modified far beyond any movie car. Under the hood sat a supercharged 572 Hemi 5.8, producing over 900 horsepower. Rocco lay in the shade of the pit garage, but his intelligent eyes tracked every movement around the car, every person who approached his human. The morning had started routinely. Vin's crew had spent 2 hours going over the Charger with meticulous care. Every bolt was checked, every fluid level verified, every safety system tested. "Brakes feel good," called out Tommy, Vin's head mechanic. "Fresh pads, bled the lines twice, pressure's perfect." But something was different about Rocco's demeanor today. Usually calm during preparations, he seemed restless. His ears would perk at sounds only he could hear. His nose would twitch as if detecting troubling scents, and his gaze kept returning to the Charger with suspicious intensity. "What's got you worried, boy?" Vin asked, kneeling beside his companion. Rocco's response was to walk purposefully to the car, circling it slowly with his nose working overtime. The dog paused at each wheel, spent extra time near the brake lines, then sat directly in front of the vehicle and looked back at Vin with concern. Tommy laughed. "Maybe he smells another dog's territory on the tires." But Vin knew Rocco better than that. In 6 years together, the dog had never shown interest in other animals' scents during racing events. This behavior was new, and it was specific to the car itself. "Run the brake check one more time," Vin said quietly. The brake check came back clean, fluid levels perfect, pad thickness ideal, no leaks, pressure holding steady. But Rocco's unease hadn't diminished. If anything, it had intensified. As engine warm-up time approached, Rocco's behavior became increasingly agitated. The massive Pitbull began pacing the garage, his usual calm replaced by obvious anxiety. He would approach the Charger, circle it, then return to Vin's side with soft whines the actor had never heard before. Other drivers were already taking qualifying laps, the sound of high-performance engines echoing across the desert. Vin watched a modified Camaro take turn 3 at speed. Beautiful controlled violence, exactly the challenge that made these events worthwhile. "Let's get you suited up," Tommy said, holding out Vin's helmet. As Vin reached for the helmet, Rocco suddenly moved between them, blocking the exchange. The dog's massive frame positioned itself directly in front of the racing gear, and he looked up at Vin with an expression that was unmistakably pleading. "Rocco, move," Vin said gently. But the dog didn't budge. Instead, He moved closer to the charger and began barking, not his usual alert bark, but something deeper, more urgent. The sound echoed through the garage with an intensity that made everyone stop. "What's gotten into him?" Tommy asked, genuinely puzzled. Vin studied his companion's behavior. Through movie sets filled with explosions and stunts, Rocco had never acted like this. The dog was trying to communicate something, and his message was clearly focused on the car. Rocco responded by trotting to the charger's front end and pawing at the brake line connections, then moving to each wheel in turn, his nose working frantically. He was systematic, methodical, checking the same components the mechanics had already verified multiple times. "Tommy, one more time," Vin said, standing up. "But this time, don't just check what we can see. Check what we can't see." His head mechanic sighed, but began a more thorough investigation. He crawled under the car, following brake lines from master cylinder to calipers, checking every connection point, every mounting bracket. Meanwhile, Rocco had positioned himself directly in front of the car and refused to move. His barking had stopped, but he remained alert, watching both Vin and Tommy with focused intensity. "Wait," Tommy's voice came from under the car, carrying a note of concern. "There's something here." Vin dropped to his knees and looked under the charger. Tommy was pointing to a connection point on the rear brake line near the left wheel. "Look closer," Tommy said, pulling out his phone's flashlight. "See that? The threads on the fitting. They're stripped. Just barely. It's holding now, but under racing conditions with the heat and vibration and pressure." Vin's blood went cold. A brake line failure at racing speeds would mean total loss of stopping power. On a track like Willow Springs, that would be a death sentence. "How did we miss this during inspection?" Vin asked. "Because it just started," Tommy replied. "This is stress failure, the kind that happens gradually and gives way suddenly. Under race conditions with repeated hard braking from high speeds, somewhere around lap 10 or 12, when you're pushing hardest, this fitting would have let go." Rocco had finally relaxed. His job was done. The danger had been identified and would be fixed. He padded over to Vin and rested his massive head against his human's leg, accepting the grateful scratching behind the ears. As Tommy worked to replace the damaged brake fitting, Vin sat in the garage with Rocco beside him, trying to process what had almost happened. The dog had detected a mechanical failure that sophisticated equipment and experienced mechanics had missed. "How?" Vin asked aloud, looking into Rocco's intelligent amber eyes. "How did you know?" Other drivers had gathered around. Word spread quickly. Vin Diesel's dog had detected brake failure before it happened, potentially saving not just Vin's life, but possibly other drivers. "That's incredible," said Jake, who drove the modified Mustang. "I've heard of dogs detecting seizures before they happen, or smelling cancer, but mechanical failure." "Maybe it's not so different," suggested Dr. Sarah Chen, who raced on weekends. "Brake systems under stress give off different chemical signatures. If a dog is bonded to someone who spends time around cars, he might learn to associate certain scents with danger." Vin nodded, but he suspected there was more to it. Rocco had been rescued from a world where survival depended on reading subtle cues, on detecting threats before they became lethal. Those instincts had evolved into something approaching a sixth sense about anything that might threaten his human. "The fitting's replaced," Tommy announced. "New part properly torqued. She's safe to race." Rocco, now that the immediate danger was past, had returned to his normal pre-race behavior. He lay calmly in his usual spot, occasionally glancing at the charger, but without frantic urgency. His job was done. "What do you think, boy?" Vin asked. "Are we good to go?" Rocco's response was to stand, walk calmly to the charger, and sit beside the driver's door in his exact pre-race position. No anxiety, no warnings, just patient readiness. As Vin climbed into the Charger, he caught Rocco's eye through the window. "Thanks, partner. I owe you one." The engine roared to life, 900 horsepower vibrating through the chassis. Vin felt the familiar surge of adrenaline. But underneath was something new, deeper appreciation for the guardian who watched over him. The qualifying session went perfectly. The Charger responded beautifully. The new brake fitting held without issue, and Vin posted the second fastest time. More importantly, he felt completely confident, knowing every system had been verified and his most trusted companion approved. During the main race, Vin found himself thinking about the morning's events. As he worked through traffic using careful brake applications, he was acutely aware of the system that had almost failed. Each solid, consistent pedal response reminded him of Rocco's frantic warning and the disaster averted. The race was clean and competitive. Vin finished third, a respectable result that satisfied his competitive side. As he pulled into the garage after the cool-down lap, he could see Rocco waiting, tail wagging in greeting. That evening, back home in Los Angeles, Vin sat in his garage surrounded by the cars that had shaped his career. Rocco lay beside him, content and relaxed. "You know what I realized today?" Vin said aloud, scratching behind the Pitbull's ears. "All these years, I thought I was the one taking care of you. But you've been taking care of me." Rocco's response was a contented sigh, the sound of a dog who knew his worth and his place. He didn't need praise or recognition. He just needed to know his human was safe. Vin posted a photo to social media with a simple caption: "Sometimes your best crew member has 4 legs and doesn't need a paycheck. Rocco saved my life today by detecting brake failure before it happened. Family isn't just about the people you choose. Sometimes it's about the rescue who chooses you." Within minutes, responses poured in. Fellow actors sharing pet stories, racing drivers talking about animals who'd saved their lives, fans celebrating the bond between the action star and his unlikely guardian. Months later, Rocco had become celebrity in the private racing community. Other drivers would joke about bringing their dogs to track days, hoping for similar mechanical insights. But everyone understood that what Rocco possessed was the product of years of bonding, of a rescue dog's survival instincts channeled into protecting the human who had given him a second chance. Vin continued to race, but with new appreciation for his partnership with Rocco. The dog still accompanied him to every event, still maintained vigilant watch, still positioned himself as the final checkpoint between potential danger and his human family. The brake incident had become part of racing folklore, but for Vin and Rocco, it was simply another day in a relationship built on mutual loyalty. The actor had saved the dog from a fighting ring. The dog had returned the favor by saving the actor from mechanical failure that could have ended everything. In interviews, Vin would often say that family was about choosing to show up for each other day after day. Rocco embodied that philosophy perfectly, a 4-legged family member whose love was measured not in words but in vigilance, not in gestures but in willingness to stand between his human and anything that might cause harm. Heroes don't always wear capes or star in movies. Sometimes they just know when something doesn't smell right, when danger is approaching before anyone else can see it coming, and sometimes that's enough to save a life.